So this is going to be the last video that we're shooting here in Montana. We're actually heading to Jackson Hole tomorrow. And for the final video in this series on the topic of energy, we're going to be talking about how to assess the people who you're dealing with and getting a sense if they're going to add value to your life or if they're going to take value from your life. Now, I want you to think of this within the framework of romantic relationships, or people even you're casually dating, friendships, and business relationships. And what I'm going to try to talk about in this video is that on one hand, I want you to love human beings unconditionally. And I want you to realize that as flawed as other human beings are, you're also going to have a lot of flaws. But then at the same time, I need you to have a parallel or simultaneous awareness that most human beings cannot and will not deliver the results that they promise you. A lot of your friends are going to let you down. A lot of people you work with are going to steal from you, or they're going to not work very hard and they're going to cut corners. A lot of people who you date or have romantic relationships with are going to just create drama and be annoying or cheat on you. That's going to happen as well. So in this video, again, like I said, we're going to bridge the gap between realizing that you're flawed and having unconditional love for all human beings, but at the same time, recognizing why it is that other human beings have limitations and how it is that we can actually help each other to fix those limitations. So that way when you say, you know what, I love other human beings, I love humanity, you're not saying that as some kind of blind fool who's making up a lie about what we are collectively. Like, oh, we're all great. Like, no, we're not. We're not all great. We're flawed. But at the same time, we're going to learn how to love humanity in spite of that, so that your love is real, authentic, and can actually lead you in a direction where all of us are empowering each other. So I'm not expecting this to be one of my more popular videos. I think videos that are popular are maybe a little bit more clearly defined, a little bit more immediately relevant, and the average person just searching around online, they can see it and go, okay, I'd like to learn that right now. But for me, this is, I mean, I might argue this is the most important topic that I could cover, and it might even turn out to be for you if you get to a very, very high level. Here's why. The first part of what we're covering is about forgiveness and loving all people. And if you get to a high level, there's going to be a lot of people that let you down. So that comes down to your sanity, okay? And also, in yesterday's video that I shot, I talked about how when you go too far down a rabbit hole of negativity, it can actually take over your mind and begin to run you. I'm gonna go deeper on that today, but it's both for your sanity and so that you don't just go down this wormhole of negativity that, trust me, you do not wanna go down, okay? Because it's almost like that little flicker of who you are just dies off. Now, the second reason we got to cover it is because if you're going to operate at a high level, you don't want to have a bunch of people leeching off you and burning down your time, your mental capital, emotional capital, time capital. We got to be aware of that. So on one level, you got to have unconditional love for humanity so you don't go crazy, and frankly, so that you can be inhabited by positivity, and it's going to have so many added benefits you can't even recognize right now. But at the same time, we have to have that discernment and realize when people are messing us up. Now, I'm going to crack into this as we lead in with two paradoxical quotes from the Sermon on the Mount in the Bible by Jesus, right? And they're paradoxical, and yet they come from the same sermon. The first one is this: you hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. What does that mean? Well, how many times in life do you sit there complaining about somebody else when you're the one screwing up? You ever seen somebody else just trashing everybody and complaining about everybody, but they've got a million of their own problems? And what they're doing in effect when they're complaining about others is they're actually depriving themselves of the opportunity to improve themselves. And frankly, it makes them massive hypocrites, right? So I felt that way. I'm sitting there complaining about somebody else. I'm like, you know what? I'm the hypocrite here. So this is a practice that I've developed. It's spiritual, but it's also very, very pragmatic as far as a practice. Maybe could be the single best practice I've ever cultivated. Every single time that I see somebody goofing up, I say to myself, where am I goofing up? I mean, I do this on autopilot. It is just bam, bam, bam. I do it every single time. If I see somebody, you know, with their shoes untied, I think to myself, where are my shoes untied? If I see somebody else complaining, I say, where am I complaining? If I see somebody else being lazy, I say, where am I being lazy? That one practice will put you head and shoulders above just about anybody who you'd meet, because most people, they're just trying to pump their ego and get kind of a cheap dopamine spike from feeling better than other people. Some people get it so addicted on it, they just talk about crap other people are doing all day because they get dopamine from it all day. Now, from that point though, I've also, you know, yes, I want to love people unconditionally, and yes, I want to not judge other people, But I've also got to realize that in most cases, you're putting your pearls before swine. And so from that, I've learned a couple things. First of all, I've learned not to just sit there trying to help somebody who doesn't want the help. I've learned not to get deeply involved with somebody who can't let it land. And perhaps most importantly, I've also had to say to myself, well, why is it that some people just can't let the help land? And I've had to try to understand that on a deeper and deeper level. So that's what we're going to be really digging into here today, is how to cultivate a deeper unconditional love and be non-judgmental, but at the same time, how to recognize crap on the horizon and recognize why most people can't deliver what they say they're going to deliver, why they're going to let you down, and how to come to really a place of peace with this so that you're emanating love, you're feeling good, you're not going crazy with frustration, but at the same time, you're just able to navigate the terrain, see the crap coming, and just power through it to get to that promised land. Unconditional love for all humanity is maybe the single most important trait that you're ever going to retain. In yesterday's video here in Yellowstone, I went through in great detail how people can get basically flooded with all these negative influences from society. All this trauma energy from society, bad fuel they're being leached off of, right? I call them poop eaters, okay? Not judging them actually, just saying objectively, like they're eating poop and we eat poop, okay? Is what I'm trying to say. So this stuff happens, and as humanity, we're in this situation, right? Why don't you think of it this way, even if it's not even true? Why don't you imagine that there's some evil force where that evil force is like, it's putting poisons into us and putting trauma into us and pitting us against each other. And we're functioning at such a low level that we're all just mad at each other, right? This person did this, right? And we're just gonna go off on each other and fight each other and go to war. But what if we knew that there was some evil force doing that? What would we say? We'd say, hey, I've realized there's some evil force doing that, triggering that. I gotta be the first one to stop that cycle. I've gotta be the first one to stop being mad at people. I've gotta be the first one to stop judging in such a nasty way. I gotta go first. I've gotta love people unconditionally. I've gotta start to turn the tide here if humanity's even gonna have a chance. Well, I really do think there's a bigger game at play here, a game that we can't entirely see or understand. And the problem is, as soon as we go into that negativity of turning against our brothers and sisters in humanity, I think what begins to happen is that we're feeding that cycle. And so we've got to somehow rise above that, and somehow we've got to not allow ourselves to be infected with this hatred and disappointment, and we've got to be open and love people unconditionally. But in order to be able to wield a high degree of power and influence, and to be at our best and to be at our potential, we also can't just have people leeching off of us and messing up our lives either. So this is the paradox, right? And so that's why in this video, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to show you why unconditional love is so important, okay? In addition that we're making a ton of mistakes, and then by focusing on what other people are doing to us, we're not even recognizing all the way that we're doing things that are wrong, right? But I'm trying to hammer this into your head that you've got to love people unconditionally. And when you do, there's so many added benefits, okay? Because what you're doing is you're pulling down the frequency of love. You're pulling down the frequency of expansion. Okay, some people would even say that the universe was made with love, with the energy of love. The energy of creation is love. So you want to be fueled by that and tapped into that high vibration frequency. And anytime that you're thinking badly of people or judging them or wanting revenge on them, realize that you're infecting yourself with that. You're tapping into the dark side of the force. Before you know it, you're turning into Darth Vader. And you might think that you're not going to, but you will. There's a lot of things in life I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit sure of, or I'm not sure of. This is something I'm very, very sure of. This will mess you up in ways you don't understand. If somebody does something bad to you and it infects you, you let them infect you with hatred. If you allow that to happen, 1% of the actual act that they did to you is going to be the damage. 99% is how it infects you and corrupts your soul. So I've got to show you that. But then on the flip side, I want to go very, very deep on this video of why it is that, frankly, most people are going to let you down. Okay, you've got to get yourself around better quality people. The norm of the people you'll be around, generally speaking, is going to be not helping you to move up. And if you want to be somebody who has high influence and does a lot and reaches your potential and can contribute more, you've also got to be aware of who you're around and not put your pearls before swine. You love all people, but it doesn't mean that you have to engage with them on a really, really deep level. So one of my best friends, we're having a chat about this, and he says to me, Owen, it's very interesting what you're saying. It's like a story that I heard about a samurai. He had to defend his village, so he breaks in this person's house, and he's about to kill this bad guy. And right as he's about to kill the bad guy looks up at me, spits in his face. And right when he spits in his face, he feels himself just want to come in and stab him, and he says, wait, I can't stab you after you spit in my face because I'd be killing you out of anger. So the samurai goes home, chills out, maybe smokes a samurai blunt, I don't know what he does, okay? Comes back, and from a space of neutrality, comes back, and then kills him just for the good of the village. Why would the samurai not kill him when somebody spit in his face, but he would only kill him for the good of the village? It's because if on an intuitive level, the samurai knows, if I get mad and I kill this guy, I'm tapping into something very, very dark, and it's just gonna darken my soul. If the person spits on him and he gets angry and then takes life, he's now infecting himself with that negative energy that comes from revenge, as opposed to trying to do something good for his people in fighting a war, okay? So he actually takes it so seriously that he'll even go home, calm himself down, and do his duty from a place of neutrality, but he's not gonna do it from a place of anger, because if he takes a life in anger, it's gonna infect him. I thought that story was very, very powerful, which was this idea that anytime you harm somebody and it's for your personal benefit, such as taking revenge, it's infecting you with something that you don't realize. And growing up, I came from a pretty harsh environment. I saw a lot of this back and forth stuff up close, okay? More up close than I'm gonna be mentioning here, so you can sort of take from that whatever you will. But I've seen where this path leads. And ultimately, it just leads towards a massive amount of paranoia and negativity, and the fighting just goes back and forth and back and forth. Now, here's how I'm gonna try to show this to you so that you can try to get a sense of it, okay? I want you to imagine that somebody who you work with makes up a bunch of lies about you. And they're blatantly lying about you. And imagine that the other people who are listening to this are so stupid that they're actually believing the lie that the other person is saying. It never occurs to them, maybe the person who's talking crap is just a negative person and a liar, and maybe the person who's not responding is actually the better person. They think of it from a framework of like, well, that must be true, because like they're only able to understand the most simplistic level, like, person said this, therefore it is true. They're not answering. They're probably guilty because they're not feeding into it. Right? Now imagine that, okay? You're being lied about, and it's messing with your reputation. Imagine that right now. Now, I want you to imagine two different things, okay? Two different outcomes here. The first one is I want you to imagine that you do all sorts of things to take revenge on them. All sorts of things. And, it could be that you mess up their reputation back. It could be that you get them fired, or you get them to lose clients, or whatever it is, right? Imagine that. Now, go in your body right now and tell me how that feels, okay? Feel that rush of adrenaline, of revenge, okay? Think about that right now. Now, we're gonna then look at it from an alternate perspective. Imagine that happened. And take a deep breath. I'm gonna say a few things to you. First of all, your life is going to be short. You're going to come here, you're going to live, and you're going to die. It's going to blow by. It is less than a drop in the ocean, okay? For the amount of time the universe is going to be around, it's less than a drop in the ocean. And ultimately, the person who did this, they are going down that track of engaging with just darkness. They're going down that track. Imagine if instead about worrying about your reputation, you said to yourself, hey, I know who I am. I know what I've done. I know my pros and my cons. I've done my best. And it's okay. I know who I am. And then imagine if instead of feeding off of the glory of other people liking you, like, oh, this person thinks I'm good. That person thinks I'm good. Oh, wait, but now they talk bad on me. Now they think I'm bad. Imagine if instead of being on that kind of weird roller coaster ride of up and down, of dopamine and no dopamine from your reputation going up and down, imagine if you just gave yourself approval. Imagine if you knew who you were. Now imagine if you did a mathematical equation of how much time and energy you'd spend being mad at that other person and trying to defend yourself and being pissed off. And imagine if instead you put all that energy into serving others. You said, I'm not going to let that bother me. I'm going to put all that energy into making the world a better place. I'm not going to have 1 millisecond in my life wasted. None of it. I'm just going to focus on adding value. And at the end of my life, I want to have added so much value that I can look back at my life and I know I didn't waste a single second of it on a bunch of crap. So barring that what that person is doing is literally just interfering with you from doing what you need to do, in which case, yeah, you've got to defend yourself. But barring that it's got to that point, you always think it's at that point, and it's not, even though you think it is, it's not. Imagine if instead you just let it go and you knew who you were and you focused on adding value. Now imagine if what you did was you took that frustration, that energy, and you channeled it into something positive. Now here's the key, and this is the part that you're going to hate the most. You can't have both. You cannot have both. Imagine if either A, you get to take revenge, and then you stay at this paradigm, or you don't take revenge and you channel that energy into doing incredible creative work. And what happens is that everybody who's throwing this crap at you, they're actually fueling you. Because every single time they're throwing this crap at you, you take that energy in, and now you're using it to serve other people. What's going to happen when you're serving other people? You're going to get a better reputation. You're going to leave behind better work. You're going to leave behind a creative legacy. You're going to be a visionary. You're going to be the leader of the pack, and so on and so forth. But you think in your mind that you get to have both. You think that you get to be angry or take revenge and focus on the negative and burn all that mental and emotional and time capital, but still you get to be the super genius and still you get to do all the great work. What I tell you is that's largely false. And yes, you can think of examples of people who did it, but I would challenge you to try it the way that I'm saying for like a month. Try it for a month. Just everybody that pisses you off, you say, you know what? That's between you and God. That's between you and whatever personal hell that you're living in. But I'm going to just take that energy and I'm going to challenge it and I'm going to transmute it and I'm going to use it to do something really, really, really positive. So that's what I'm trying to suggest to you here, okay? And what happens is, weirdly, when you lose reputation, this is what I've experienced. When you lose reputation and you don't resist that you've lost reputation. When you've been attacked or disappointed or stolen from and you don't resist it, and maybe even wait for that person to be having a hard time, and when that person's actually having a hard time, this is where it gets pretty intense, you actually go and you try to help them. Okay, you'll never get public acknowledgement for all the times you do this, but you actually go and you try to help them. You see them having a down moment, you actually go and you try to help them. And what happens is that in doing this, you're going to access energies and brilliance and visions that you cannot imagine. Okay, here's the payoff in my experience. If you take revenge on somebody, you'll get this cheap feeling of revenge. If you crap talk someone, you get a cheap feeling of superiority. But if you can just let go of that and allow it to be and don't resist it, you'll get it's weird, okay? It's freaking weird. It is the weirdest thing you've ever seen. But when you get on this train, it gets addictive. And it's very selfish. You'll love it, okay? And ironically, you help other people, but it helps you selfishly. If you just let it happen, you'll start getting these downloads of present energy. You will get more present to the moment than you ever knew that you could. It is the weirdest thing. It's like, you ever go out to a bar or club and you try to go talk to some people you're into, and you got a couple of rejections, and if you kind of resist it internally, like you get in the worst mood ever you go home. But if you just accept that maybe not everybody want to talk to you, you ever have this moment where you kind of just start laughing and you're like, this is hilarious, right? And it's like, you just see the humor in the fact that not everybody liked you. And then all of a sudden you kind of get in state, you get in the best mood ever. And then you just have the best night of your life after that, right? Like those first couple rejections led you to having the best night of your life. Well, in the same way, when people let you down or steal from you or harm you or talk bad on you or try to attack you, if you could just let it be and you say to yourself, wait a minute, I'm more powerful than that. I am more powerful than that. I'm bigger than that. Coming from a metaframe, like imagine if you knew right now that you're invincible, you could never die, you had billions of dollars, you had unlimited people who want to be physically intimate with you, unlimited access to every single great restaurant, unlimited access to private jets. You could take a private spaceship all over the world, all over the galaxy. Now, imagine if you knew you had all that. Could anybody hurt you? Imagine if you knew you had all that. Could anybody mess with your mind? Imagine if you had all that. Would you waste time being mad at people? Well, guess what? You're not as far off from that as you think, okay? There's something more inside of yourself. It's called your spirit. And that thing, whatever it is more than the limitation of this physical body. And so what's happening is that when you're always fighting back and resisting and being angry from every angle, you're moving your consciousness into the body and into limitation. But when you come from a frame that nothing can harm you, you're moving back into your spirit. And so now you're not identifying with the limitation of this, but you're identifying with the infinite. And so what happens as a result of that is you start tapping into something way bigger. Your work gets better. Synchronicities start happening. Yes, that other person messed with you, but all these other things that you wouldn't expect just start happening. Like these miracles just start unfolding. Even miracles that, frankly, could seem bad, like things that would seem horrific, but then it turns out to be the best thing ever. So the reason why this is happening is because by the act of non-resistance, you're tapping into the infinite. You're tapping into spirit. So those things that are coming at you are actually a challenge to say, you know what, I don't resist this. Now look, if somebody's coming at you with a knife, defend yourself. If somebody's blocking you from adding value to the world, don't just bend over and take it. But the point being, for every one situation like that, there's 500 that are these minor slights that you can get over. But what you're going to do is in 99% of those cases, you're going to rationalize all of them and you're going to burn your life away. So imagine if right now I told you that in the act of non-resistance, you'd be tapping into something deeper and all these amazing things would open up to you. I get it. It's going to induce some skepticism. Anything that I consider in life, I come at it from a skeptic standpoint. I think you should too. And I hope that you're thinking critically. I hope that you're not just seeing it through some woo-woo lens, but you're really taking the time to kind of say to yourself, okay, I'm open-minded to what Owen just told me. He's seen some stuff. He's been through some stuff. And I'm like, so if I'm telling you this, it's like we're in a forest. This path that you're on, I've been down that path. I've seen where that path goes. Then I found this other path. So all that I'm saying to you is like, so that we can save the time from you going down that path. Like, the whole point of sharing information is so we can actually kind of be more productive and happier and whatnot, right? So and not waste time, be miserable. So rather than going down that path, try what I'm saying for a day. Try what I'm saying for a week. See if you can become a little bit more energetically attuned and go into that non-resistance. There's a great book you can read. It's called The Tao Te Ching. Okay, read The Tao Te Ching. It's a book about inaction. It's like you don't take action and then a whole bunch of stuff happens. What are they saying in the Tao Te Ching? What they're saying there is that you think you've got to resist everything and fight everything and take action, but sometimes there's a power of non-doing. Okay, a power of non-doing. When you're tapping into this constant reactive energy, that action that's taken out of reactivity is the problem. So that kind of brings us back full circle to that samurai example. The samurai is still going to kill the dude, to save his country, to do the right thing for his village and his people. But he's not going to do it out of reactivity, right? The Jedi, they're still going to go fight. But they're not going to do it from a reactivity. They're coming from a different space. They're tapping into something very different. The dark side, in this movie, it seems powerful, but it's tapping in that reactive energy. So what we want to realize is, yes, we can see the chip in our brother's eye, but we've got the plank in our own eye. Oh, we're all mad at life, but now we're just reacting. And there's not that core, powerful proactivity. We're coming from a centered, present space of love and neutrality towards the situation. We're not able, in reaction, to come from that space and be at our highest power. So what I'm trying to encourage you to do here is I'm trying to encourage you in this video. I'm going to talk to you about just how bad we people can be. And I'm going to talk about why that happens and really how, frankly, people can even be worse than you think. And I'm even going to talk to you about how to take action to make an amazing life, So it's not about being passive, it's really about massive action. But it's about massive proactive action. Not just being in reaction, not tapping into evil, not tapping into being some little demon, not tapping into this rage and just reacting and reacting, wasting years of your life being angry and miserable, and watching the physical toll that takes on you and the mental, emotional toll that takes on you. But instead what we're going to talk about is how to just simply be in our proactivity, be in a space of love, be in a space of neutrality towards what's happening, because again, we're fearless because we're something more, and tapping into our infinite potential. So again, the ideal that I have for you here is, from a materialistic standpoint, I just want you winning and winning and winning and winning. I don't want you burning any mental capital, emotional capital, time capital on being frustrated with people. But then from there, I also want you to have that glassy, beautiful, untouched look of someone who is not carrying resentment or being jaded, okay? But then from there, what I also want you to understand is I want you to be able to see problems as they're arising, so that as problems are coming towards you, you can quickly see them coming, assess them, and then just move on. Funny enough, in forgiveness, okay, it's sort of a simultaneous thing, it's a parallel thing. In learning why you should forgive people, okay, in learning why they do not know what they do, okay, as Jesus said on the cross, they don't know what they're doing. In learning why they don't know what they're doing, on one level, it empowers you with forgiveness. But on another level, it also empowers you to steer clear of them and to put them in what you call your charity bin. What does that mean, to put them in your charity bin? What it means is that you want a certain percentage of your life just purely towards giving, even towards giving to people that are really acting in a bad way, but just giving unconditionally, okay? And that's an important thing to do. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to get involved with these people in the areas where you're trying to grow. So if you're trying to grow, you don't want to have a significant other who's a hot mess, right? If you're trying to grow, you don't want to be working with somebody or having a business partnership or a friendship with somebody who's dark or causing problems all the time. So you can help them, but that's got to be limited to as you're giving charity and as you're getting out there and helping them. And so what you want to do is you want to grow and grow and grow as much as you can. And you want to get the best people around you, and you want to see people that are going to become a problem, and you want to create a boundary, okay? So that way you're growing and growing and growing. Now, as you grow, that little charity bin part that you now have more to give. Somebody who's a total screw up, you say, hey, let me help you out. I know that it's probably pouring water in a leaking bucket, and for that reason, it's probably more important for me than it even is for you that I help you. Like, you'll get a bit of relief for a minute, and you'll keep screwed up. But it's important for my spirit to come from a place of abundance and help you. So you'll go and you'll help people, and you'll help them even more than you could have, because you're in your power, because you've created boundaries around people that are screwed up, and also you'll forgive them because you'll understand them better. So that's what I want to talk about next. I want to understand why people don't know what they do, and really just finding a place of forgiveness for that, but also a place to steer clear. You can help them, but help them with the spare time that you have, and don't let it stop you from reaching your dreams because you're connected with people that are going to potentially drag you down. So instinctively, we see this animal behind us, the bison, and we love the bison. It's a beautiful animal. But I feel like we don't give that same consideration to our fellow human beings because we expect more from our fellow human beings. The reason that we expect more is because the average person who we talk to, say we're going to go hire them, right? Say we're going to hire them for a job. They're like, oh, I could totally do that. I could do that job. It's going to be great. I'm going to do an awesome job. But of course, in most cases, they're not going to do an awesome job. Probably less than 10% of people are hireable. But 90% of people will say that they're hireable. Likewise, someone who you get into a relationship with, they're probably not going to say right off the bat, like, I'm going to create crazy drama or cheat on you. They're not saying that. They're like, no, I love you, baby. It's amazing. We're not expecting them to let us down. Likewise, someone who's a good friend, maybe they let us down in some other capacity that friends do. You know, maybe they're late or whatever else it is. We don't expect to be let down. We expect more. When a buffalo does something a little crazy, we're like, well, it's a buffalo. It's a wild animal. We don't think like that as far as human beings. But in truth, in my view, I don't think that we're given the proper education in our youth to really understand ourselves. That's part of why I make these videos. And I think on average, in aggregate, the average human being is actually a lot more unconscious than we realize. The difference is that with the right education, the right opportunity, we can actually wake up. But without that education, that opportunity, we're kind of stuck. Let me give a couple examples of why, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. Simple example. One of them I'd say would be, what is your belief about your internal status, right? Like say I said to you right now, what do you think your status is out of 10? What would be that number? Would it be a 5, a 7, a 9, a 10? What I've noticed is that we have this thing called success barriers. I've talked about this in other videos. And if we feel like we're getting too much success, we'll actually start to self-sabotage. So there's been many, many people who I've worked with, and I've helped them to build a business that's doing, say, about $1 million a year in revenue, right? Like right around that point where we get to around $1 million a year in revenue. And then I notice they start self-sabotaging. And the way that I'll notice that people self-sabotage when they start making too much money is they start complaining about the little things. Very, very common. Maybe we just went out and we did some projects together. We made a couple $100,000. And rather than saying, wow, I was broke 2 years ago, I'm making a couple $100,000 now. It's like, well, wait, but this wasn't good. That wasn't good. And just bickering over nothing. Now, when you see another human being bickering over nothing, when you just made a couple $100,000, you think, you know, I'm pretty sure that just a couple years ago you had nothing going on. We just made a couple $100,000, put it in your pocket. Your life's pretty amazing. Why are you complaining? It's easy to be mad. It's easy to say, why are you taking what we built and burning it into flames? Very easy to say that. But we don't realize that if that person has a certain sense of status and they don't see themselves as that person who makes millions of dollars, they'll usually goof it up. There's all this this classic example about the lottery. They say that something like 90% of people that win the lottery blow all the money within 5 years. They want to get back to the level that they think is aligned with their status. Very, very common. Well, the average person doesn't understand they're doing that. They have no idea. The average person thinks, if I just got money, I'd be good. Right? That's why we see so much of this communism type stuff where they're like, just give us the money and we'll be good. No, you'll probably mess that up. That's why it never works. If you just gave people money and it worked, that'd be amazing. There has to be an inner shift. Well, guess what? Usually when there's an inner shift, what winds up happening is the person starts figuring out ways to make money. If you view yourself as a 10, as far as, say, money, your status in your relationship to money, you're not just going to sit there making 30 grand a year. You're like, no, I make more than that. And your brain's going to go into overdrive finding ways to make money. But when you view yourself as a 7 or a 6 or a 5 or 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 or 0, then you're going to find ways to blow the money on crap and focus on stupid nonsense to get rid of it because that's your relationship to that money. You're unconscious. So forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They have no idea. I've gone through this. I've had to find forgiveness there. Likewise, another one I talk about all the time is emotional addictions. Half the reason I said don't be mad at people is because it addicts you to negative emotions. In a given day, if you actually think about it, you're probably happy a certain amount of the day and sad a certain amount of the day. It's an emotional addiction. Emotions are addictive, like how heroin's addictive. Well, think how much the average person who takes heroin is hooked on heroin. Now imagine if that person who's hooked on heroin could just press a little button and they get a shot of heroin they're addicted to. How much should they be pressing that button? Well, imagine if you don't even have to press a button. You just think a thought and it unleashes the heroin. Eventually what would happen is it would remold your whole brain, rewire your whole brain to just keep pumping those thoughts that gives you the heroin, right? The desire for heroin, the addiction to heroin would overwhelm your conscious mind and you just be like say that just thinking the word pink dragon made you get a shot of heroin, all day your brain would just be going pink dragon, pink dragon, pink dragon, pink dragon, pink dragon. It would go in this crazy loop that you couldn't even control anymore because the addiction to the heroin would overwhelm your conscious mind. You'd be like, I want to have a thought other than pink dragon, but I can't. Pink dragon, pink dragon, pink dragon. You just keep doing it. Well, that's what's happening with people's thoughts. That's why people are unconscious. They're asleep. Let's say that 70% of the day you're generally content, but 30% of the day on average you're in a bad mood. What's going to happen is that somehow, some way, over time, that addiction to the bad mood will find a way to get in a bad mood. So let's say, for example, that I take you out on the most incredible day. We hit up Yellowstone National Park. We see some cool bison. We go check out the geysers. We go check out some cool valleys. We're having a great day. You know, we eat elk burgers. We visit a beautiful spa at the end of the day. You know, some cool hot spring end of the day. I promise you what's going to happen is that if we created a day where you had 0% bad that day, okay, but your body is used to 30% of the day being bad, what's going to happen is right at the end of the day, You're going to start complaining, finding things to be pissed off about, and just getting super negative. And frankly, if I even help you through that, and then I keep you in a good mood all the time, eventually what you're going to do is you've had a withdrawal from those anger chemicals for too long, those disappointment chemicals, all that cortisol that you're used to having. And what will happen is you'll just have this supreme flip out. You know, you'll have like a week's worth of kind of unleashed anger and frustration that you normally have, or sadness that you normally have, and boom, you'll get that in a day, because it's bringing your body back into homeostasis. But you don't know that you're doing that. You have no clue that that's what's going on. You don't know what you're doing. So are we educated on this in public education? No. Is there a major emphasis on it? No. And the average person, they're completely convinced that they're justified in what they're doing. So now if you've got the average person, they have status anxiety and self-sabotage. Then they have addiction to certain emotional chemicals. They have self-sabotage. Well, of course they don't know what they're doing. But still, you've got to recognize that people are doing that. And frankly, you've got to be better than that, okay? Again, don't get stuck on the chip in your brother's eye. Look at the plank in your own eyes. You've got to evolve out of that yourself. But then once you evolve out of that, when you can recognize that you're dealing with people that have that, don't go too far down the path with them. Now, another one is sustained focus. And this is another one where society is just built to trick us. We're getting, in television, for example, I think that they would change the image every 7 seconds. Things like jump cuts. Now, I want to put this in context for you, for me as a content creator. I'll have different marketers come to me and say, hey man, I love your content, but it's never going to go big unless you add in those jump cuts. You've got to stop doing long form content, do short form content. Imagine you're a content creator and you're being pressured by really, really intelligent marketers that can help you to make more money to basically dumb down the population. And you're being called an idiot if you're not contributing to dumbing down the population. Think about that for a minute. How does that make you feel? Well, that's what's going on. And likewise, if you're creating food, you're probably being told by marketers, you know, add more sugars into it, make it taste better, make it sell. That way you can pay for your children and family to live. You know, these people are crazy. They're going to watch crap anyway. They're going to eat crap anyway. It is what it is. Don't try to save them. It's not your responsibility. Focus on your family. That's what you're being told as a product creator. Does that make you mad? Maybe you don't make products. Maybe you don't create content. And it makes you mad, and yet do you want to be the one who goes and loses money because you're creating content that demands more attention? Do you want to not maximize your dollar? What I've done is I found a middle ground where I try to do long form content, but I'm like, giant pink jacket, giant beard, crazy man talking with crazy accents in a crazy park to hold your attention, okay? So I've tried to find a way to hold your attention with public speaking, shifts in cadence and different vibe every video, different topics every video, just try to hold your attention with long form content to try to actually help to stretch you out. But the average person probably doesn't even know how to create content like that because it took me 20 years, okay? Average content creator doesn't know about that. So, you know, no different than somebody who makes healthy food, but they find a million different ways to make it taste good, which is beautiful. God bless their souls. That's amazing they did that. But the average person can't figure that out. So the average products, average media you're consuming is shortening your attention span. Platforms are shortening your attention span. And it's a problem. So the average person's attention span, you can read about this in the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. There's another book called The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brain. Amazing book. The average person gets so hooked on short-term dopamine spikes, they've been taken out of natural balance with their environment. Look, take that buffalo down there, right? He's having a good time. He probably gets dopamine more gradually. He's getting dopamine more gradually. So what's happening is he goes and accomplishes something, maybe gets a nice piece of grass or whatever, then he gets a little bit of dopamine. And it comes and it keeps him in balance with his environment. But what marketers figure out is if you could just go dopamine, 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 you know, take a video game, for example, like now you're a ninja, now you're shooting a fireball, now you're flying. Dopamine, right? Maybe, you know, little adult films online, dopamine, 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 right? Well, marketers figure that out because your brain's just saying it's a 0 or 1. It's dopamine or it's no dopamine. And your brain's trying to go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, not 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Your brain is looking for the path in nature to get you to the most dopamine. Because in nature, if you got a lot of dopamine, that means you're winning. But in modern society, it doesn't mean that. It means that some marketer figured out how to feed you dopamine to get you hooked. So, okay, does the average person know that they're in that kind of mindset? No, of course they don't know. They have no clue that they're stuck in that. So if you say to them, hey, would you want to make $1 million? Would you want a job where you make millions of dollars? Would you want to be in a really healthy relationship? Whatever it is, right? They're like, of course I would. Of course I would. They don't have the attention span to produce results. They're addicted to negativity. They have a low sense of status, so they're going to self-sabotage. So of course they don't know what they're doing. They have no idea. The average person who's talking a bunch of trash doesn't know that by creating a fake reality where they're putting someone else below them, they feel like they're winning, they're getting dopamine. It feels completely real. The average person who maybe got traumatized as a child or got traumatized in life and then pays that forward and pushes that trauma energy forward, they have no idea that they're doing that. They're completely clueless. They're as clueless as the buffalo, okay? Just as clueless. They're unconscious. They don't know that they're passing along that trauma. They don't know how to release trauma. You can study how to release trauma and get it out of yourself in most cases. But if you don't know how, they don't know what they do. Last one I'll mention here is groupthink. The average person is brainwashed by groupthink. Why is that? Look, we get information from two different areas. One is from our own independent experience and analysis, and another is from groupthink. And part of our mind's strength is that we can learn from others, right? That's a good mechanism. We say to ourselves, well, who looks the most confident with what they're saying? Who looks the most confident and congruent with what they're saying? And who has the most social proof? Who has the most people listen to them? Oh, that must be the expert. That's the authority. I should listen to them. I should go with the beliefs of the group. But the problem is that we get addicted on that groupthink. In our modern society, it trains us to get addicted on groupthink. And so we see something that we know is wrong, but we don't call it out. Right now in our society, there is more going on negative than I've seen probably in my entire lifetime. And almost everybody knows that what's happening is wrong, but nobody's willing to think for themselves and say, yo, I got to call this out. Look, in my mind, one of the most valuable skills in the world is a soldier who will go into battle to defend their country. But you know what? What's becoming possibly a more valuable skill in this new reality that we're living in is that ability for there to be a room of 10,000 people and for someone to say, hey, what do y'all think of this? No one puts up their hand, and that one crazy person puts up their hand and says, yo, this is wrong. That one person in 10,000 who says, I don't care what y'all think. This is wrong. That ability to put your hand up in a room, in a sea of people that believe one thing, and you put your hand up and you say, you know what? I got a different opinion. That skill in this day and age, when people are mobbed for having a different opinion, that skill is going to be one of the most valuable skills going in the future. Those people, they're going to pay a steep price. They're going to pay a social cost for sharing what they believe to be true. And they'll be persecuted. But that is what it is. It just is what it is. And the people who are persecuting them that are addicted on negativity, addicted on being low status, addicted to complaining, can't hold their attention long enough to even see the truth, those people, they're not going to know that they're persecuting that one person that puts their hand up in a group of 10,000. They're not going to know. They don't know what they do. But that's just the truth, is that we can recognize at a core level that the average person hasn't been educated to understand what it is that they're doing. They're clueless. They're in a walking daze. But then at the same time, these are the same people that have so much potential. And with the right education, they could come out of that. And so we can sit here being angry at the world and saying, oh, the world is bad, just being angry at everything. Or we could say, you know what? First thing we got to do is we got to represent the change that we see in the world. We've got to represent that. Work on ourselves. Work on fixing yourself. Take all that time that you spend being mad at the unconsciousness of the world and just work on fixing yourself. And as you get better results, other people will see that. Maybe they'll even want to listen to you now. You can start to accumulate power and exert that power like we've been talking about here in this video series, and you can actually have an influence in making the world a better place. In my view, human beings, we're on our soul's journey. So what that means that we're on our soul's journey is that we come here, we're imperfect, and we have an opportunity to be better. That's number one. So you've got to respect that everybody is where they're at. Doesn't mean you got to deal with them. Doesn't mean you got to build a business around them. Doesn't mean you got to drag yourself down. You should never do that when you can recognize somebody's struggling with this and they're probably not going to change anytime soon. Don't get pulled into it. You can help them for charity. Limit that. Make a plan for that. It feels amazing. Best thing in the world, but limit it. So we don't want to get pulled into it, but we also don't have to condemn them. Okay? We don't have to condemn another person because we ourselves are not perfect, and there's plenty of people that are operating at higher levels than we are, or maybe even higher beings than we are, who could then condemn us. So don't condemn others unless you want to be condemned. The way that you're seeing others and having nasty dispositions towards them, maybe some higher being than you would have a nasty disposition towards you because you're not perfect either. So be the model of that person who's not condemning, because frankly, when you're dead and gone and your soul goes somewhere else, that thing that's not condemning you, maybe it would want to be more friends with you and have a little more in common with you if you weren't condemning either. Now, going beyond that, I think what's also going to happen is we're going to have to, to redeem humanity, we're going to have to start looking at some of these higher abilities that we have and higher potentials that we have that, frankly, a robot or a machine or a computer, at least to my knowledge, doesn't have. That means our ability to tap in to energies beyond ourselves, our ability for growth, our ability for humanity. What do these things mean? We've got to start to explore these things. So in the same way, whenever I make a video, to be honest with you, I see what other topics are out there that are very popular, and I think of covering them. I'm like, oh, maybe I could cover this popular topic or that popular topic. But the way that I always think when I'm making a video is, how do I create something that only I could create? Like I could do videos, along the same popular topics that a lot of other teachers do it, but I'm like, well, how am I really moving the ball down the field for humanity if I just do the same thing that everybody else is doing? I want to really emphasize my unique thoughts, my unique experience. I want to make it personal. I want to make it a little bit kind of outlandish and so on and so forth, because there's already enough of those general self-help videos out there. So I'm always looking for that kind of unique angle that other people wouldn't have. Well, in the same way for humanity, I think what's going to have to start to happen is, number one, we've got to acknowledge the problems that we have, because there's no redemption without acknowledging those problems. Number two, we've got to say, you know what? We didn't know any better. We just weren't caught up as far as our education system to know better. But number three, what we've got to say is, you know what? There's something beyond this. There is redemption here. We can be redeemed. And in that process of redeeming ourselves, what's that going to involve? First of all, forgiving other people. Number two, forgiving ourselves. Number three, seeing where the problems are and what's causing them. And number four, building systems in the future to help fix a lot of these problems. Then from there, the final step, and I think this is perhaps the most important, building on that foundation, we've got to start asking ourselves, what is unique about us? What is unique about us as human beings? What is it that we can tap into as biological entities that other people can't tap into? Why is it wrong that human beings would be viewed as, say, useless eaters? And why do we have such a more beautiful, higher potential, and greater destiny than the people who would judge that have any ability to understand? I think as human beings, we're on a journey together. That's how I see it. We're all in this boat together. And as soon as we give in to hating each other or being mad at each other, that's not going to help anything. But also, not having the ability to discern when someone has a problem that they haven't been able to beat, and how that's going to drag us down, that's not our highest power either. So that's why I've made so many videos about recognizing things like poison drips or energetic vampires, things that are sucking energy off of you. And I've talked about having boundaries and saying, no. Okay, when you can see that someone's coming from that point, no. You can help them with the spare time that you have in charity, but you don't let them in your inner ecosystem. You've got to do what's right for you. But then from there, at the same time, love them, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And you want to know something? There's probably someone a little bit more powerful than you who forgives you. So that's what I wanted to get at here today. Don't let your soul be stained with negativity or anger towards other people. You can feel that for a minute, but release it. But at the same time, have that massive discernment to recognize why people have problems, pull yourself away from that, empower yourself, and then contribute to a better future where we can educate people about what's actually holding us back, and maybe even find that beautiful, unique power that we have as human beings that will take us into a future that really is unknown right now and could get pretty complex and pretty advanced. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. It's actually my last day here in Montana. We're headed to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I just wanted to share my time here with you. So I hope you took something from it. I'll be back with more soon. Peace.